Hello everyone, this is D and Molo. And yeah, today, man, I really need to stop procrastinating. I mean, look how late it is. It's getting, yeah. And today, I'm going to be reacting to this video. Well, first I should probably say that today we'll continue my series react to videos in my watch later playlist. Yes, my least successful series here. Yeah, nobody watches these videos. Yeah, the only videos that get views are my are ones about where I react to animations and all that. But I kind of like watching these videos. But let's one day they might do good. But yeah, I'll be reacting to a video by a YouTuber called Fudge, Fudge, or however you say it. And it's a video about autism, titled "My Experience with Autism." Now, in case you didn't know or you didn't notice, I am autistic. Yes, quite shocking, I know. I mean, seriously, me? Autistic? Oh, come on, man. What are the signs? Who could have guessed that? Completely unexpected. Yeah, well, enough jokes. Let's start the video. And also remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you get notified for more videos.
So, here's a video that's been a long time coming. If you've been watching my stuff for some time now, you may have heard me mention in passing in a couple of my videos that I am on the autism spectrum.
Hmm. Well, unless you know about this YouTuber, he's autistic and he's probably British. I'm gonna say probably British because there is a chance he might actually be from New Zealand, and I'm just having a hard time telling the differences between the accents and all that. Hmm. Yeah.
Heard me mention in passing in a couple of my videos that I am on the autism spectrum. I've always wanted to talk more about it, but I was never sure how or when. But now that I feel like I've finally collected my thoughts and formulated a plan for how to tackle the video, it seems like the time is right. Before I really delve into this subject, I need you to understand that it's incredibly complicated, and as such, it's going to require a bit of preamble. First of all, this video is obviously going to be very different to anything I've ever done before. I mean,
Well, I mean, I wouldn't know. This is the first video of yours that I'm seeing.
for one thing, it's not really about video games in any way, although they
Yeah. I had a feeling that he might make videos about video games, considering all the video game footage here.
may come up once or twice. So if you're watching this as someone who's simply interested in the topic and has never watched any of my stuff before, that's what I usually do.
Oh. Hold on. What? Why is the hammer and sickle in the thumbnail for the Legends of Zelda Skyward Sword video? What does that game have to do with communism? Okay, please don't tell me he's the kind of guy who awkwardly shoves politics into the plots of video games here. Eh. Yeah, I think I might check out some of his videos here just out of curiosity.
Talk about video games and I make dumb jokes along the way. Relatedly, once you're done with this, go check out the D-View. It's great fun, I promise. Come for the discourse around neurodiversity, stay for the Kermit impression. As far as visual stimuli goes, it's hard to know exactly what to show on screen, considering what my channel is in relation to the topic at hand, so I think it's fitting to just show some general footage of games that were really important to me growing up and during my childhood, so you can focus on what I'm saying, because that's obviously more important. This video might have a bit of a podcast kind of vibe to it, so feel free to just slap it on in the background while you're doing something else. It goes without saying that in just about every...
Good idea. I think I'm gonna pause the video and work on my webcomic. This is gonna be great for you. You're gonna see a sneak peek probably into the creation of one of the latest episodes of my webcomic. That. So if you're interested in that, then good for you. And also, if you have not read any of the chapters in my webcomic, then don't worry. You, I'll leave a link into it down below in the description. That so you can find it and read all the chapters, so that way you're caught up on it and don't get spoiled at all. And also, don't worry, I'll also, comment on whatever he's saying in this video here. So, yeah. But of course, if you don't want to see me, work on my webcomic, then you can also, just put this reaction video in the background and do something else. So, yeah, there's also that. So, yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna pause the video here. Alright, okay. Yeah, I got everything set up here, not doing that, but I also have it on my phone in sync with the video here on my computer. So if any text pops up while I'm busy, working on my webcomic, I will be able to notice it on my phone and react to any text that might pop up on the screen and all that. So, if you want to know, if you want to catch up to my web comic, if you haven't already caught up to it, then here it is. Here, let's see. Is it okay? Can you see the title with? Yeah, I'll just move it over here. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, right here. It, yeah, that's what it's called. You can find it on Webtoon and all that. So yeah, and it's and as you can see, in down here, it's the series is rated a young adult and all that. So if you're like 16 years old, you get then by all means, go ahead and check it out and all that. Yeah, it's, I'm pretty sure it'll be okay if you're younger than 16 too. I mean, I haven't drawn anything, too graphic for young teens yet in the series. So, yeah, you can check it out as well. I mean, I almost, just decided to pick the rating for young adult, so that way I'll have, freedom to yeah, do, something that might be required in the story in the future and all that. And not much has happened in the series so far, despite there being 20 chapters out at the time I'm recording this. But yeah, yeah, I think it's kind of good. I mean, the first few episodes are not real good, and honestly, I am planning on redoing the art, redoing some dialogue, and all that. I'm planning on going back and editing some of the earliest episodes. That way, they are much better, and all that. So yeah. Anyway, enough talk. Let's continue the video here. It's what you've came here for. So yeah, let's do it.
Every way, this is going to be a lot more stripped back than what I usually do. I'm going to be comparatively pretty serious here, and any jokes that slide their way in will be happy little accidents that popped up during script writing. Frankly, this is a pretty scary video to make. I want to try and do something good here. I want to try and be helpful with this video, but even as someone who is officially diagnosed as on the autism spectrum, it is a sensitive topic, and I'm going to try and handle it with some class without being a completely monotonous downer. It's also pretty scary, partially because, as anyone who has or knows anyone with autism will be well aware, autism has been a punchline on the internet for some years now. It seems to have supplanted the R word for the title of edgiest word we can use to insult something we find stupid or weird or just bad in general. People in the comments sections of my own videos have flippantly referred to things they don't like as autistic and just thrown it around haphazardly as an insult. There's a content creator on this very platform with millions of
Yeah. I'm not gonna. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've I think I heard it a few times it being used as a bit of an shot on the internet. Honestly, this is why we should bring back the R word. We should bring back just calling people retarded and all that, instead of replacing the word retarded with autistic, because at the very least, the majority of retarded people are too retarded to care. Yeah. That's right. Stop saying autistic. Say retarded, because most retarded people are too retarded to care. Yeah.
subscribers whose content I was enjoying very much until they, for whatever reason, also snuck it in as an insult that I guess was intended to be humorous.
So I'm just trying to get my phone and the screen right here in sync again. Okay.
I know that they're not the only one with a big audience who's just thrown the word
Yeah, I think it's in sync enough now.
around with no regard, but they're the big one I've come across. No, I'm obviously not going to name them because getting into YouTube beef sounds about as appealing as a fucking endoscopy, so don't even bother asking. But it's to make my
Yeah. Now, there are a few videos on my Patreon where I react to a video from the YouTuber What If Autist and all that, and I mentioned in those videos that you can check out on my Patreon that I don't like how he uses the term autism and all that. Especially since I'm fairly certain that at least 2/3 of his audience is autistic and all that. I mean, seriously, his channel started out as being a channel about alternate history, which I mean, that's just debate for autistic people. Like, of course, a bunch of autistic people are going to check out alternate history videos. Because now his YouTube channel has gone in a more political route and now focuses more on anthropology and geopolitics and philosophy and all that. But which are still things plenty of autistic people would be interested in. So yeah, yeah. I'm quite certain a huge bunch of his audience is autistic, and yet he quite certain that What If Autist does not understand autism at all. It's funny because I'm also because I wouldn't be really surprised if he is autistic and all that. Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't say that has great dislike for autistic people. I just think he just doesn't understand autistic people. Hmm. Uh, uh,
point, right? To some people, This is just a joke. I don't idolize this person. I was under no illusion that I knew them, so it didn't shatter my world when I heard them use autism as a joke, but it definitely served as a reminder to me that this discussion is important, even if I know some people are beyond caring before it even begins. I'm not perfect. I've laughed at some horribly offensive things before, and whether or not I want to, I probably will again someday. But we can all still try to be better. I come up with about 30 or so jokes, give or take, with every video I make, and none of them involve taking aim at marginalized people. You should try it sometime. It's not actually that hard when you have even the most basic understanding of what comedy really is. The final disclaimer I need to give here is that you need to not take everything I say as gospel. I am someone who's lived with autism for all my life, yes, but I'm not a professional or a specialist. I can and will tell you about my lived experience in a lot of detail, but I still encourage you to go and do your own research. Autism is an unfathomably complicated condition. Everyone's individual experience can differ greatly. If you're on the spectrum, or believe yourself to be, there might be a lot of things in this video that you relate to, and consequently, there might be a lot of things that make you go, what the fuck, what a fucking weirdo. And I literally made a video about what the 5 worst Mario Party boards to live on would be, so the bar is concerningly high.
Huh. Sounds like something Shape Illis Productions would make. Hmm.
Okay, now that that's all out of the way, let me give this a go. So, what is autism? Oh god, the problems have already started. See, I've lived with autism for over 20 years, or at least I'm pretty sure I have. I don't think I caught it, and I still don't think I could definitively answer that question for you. And in my experience, nor can many of the specialists or professionals dedicated to the condition, because, as I say, it's complicated, unbelievably complicated, and our understanding of it is constantly changing. When I was younger, I knew autism to be considered its own separate condition, as was Asperger's. Someone could have autism or have Asperger's, and that would be it. However, in 2013, they were somewhat folded together. The American Psychiatric...
He says Asperger's weird. That is the weirdest way I've heard the term Asperger's said. I've never heard somebody say Asperger's in that way.
Association, or APA, released the DSM-5, DSM standing for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The DSM-5 was obviously the 5th iteration of what is effectively the handbook used by healthcare professionals as a guide for diagnosing mental disorders. As of the DSM-5, instead of diagnosing autism and Asperger's separately, you now have the autism spectrum, which also contains another condition known as PDD-NOS, which I know next to nothing about and can't really speak on, and I think it would be pretty irresponsible if I tried to. All of these conditions fall under the umbrella term of autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. From 2013 onwards, if you have any of these things, you are diagnosed as autistic. Back in the day, to my understanding, Asperger's as its...
I didn't catch that, I was too focused.
Spectrum disorder, or ASD. From 2013 onwards, if you have any of these things, responsible if I tried to. All of these to nothing about them, which also contains another condition known as PDD-NOS, which I know next to nothing.
Persuasive development disorder, what?
The handbook used by healthcare professionals as a guide for diagnosing mental disorders. As of the DSM-5, instead of diagnosing autism and Asperger's separately, you now have the autism spectrum, which also contains another condition known as PDD-NOS, which I know next to nothing about and can't really speak on, and I think it would be pretty irresponsible if I tried to. All of these conditions fall under the umbrella term of autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. From 2013 onwards, if you have any of these things, you are diagnosed as autistic. Back in the day, to my understanding, Asperger's as its own separate condition was considered effectively mild autism, whereas autism through and through was more severe. Nowadays, the terms low functioning...
Yeah, I've heard that too, a few years ago, and all that.
And high functioning autism are used more often instead, and by that logic, I have what you would consider...
I heard, low functioning and high functioning too, a few years ago as well. Hmm. It's strange, no? I think I heard, low functioning and high functioning around the same time that I heard about Asperger's and all that. And, I think, shortly after I learned about the term Asperger's, I heard it, just described as high functioning autism and all that. Mm-hmm. I say I'm pretty high functioning. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not the most high functioning, but I say I'm pretty decently high functioning.
High functioning autism. I got my diagnosis when I was 16, which is extremely late compared to most. This would put it in either late 2013 or early 2014.
Hmm. Honestly, I do not really remember getting diagnosed. But I have been diagnosed and all that. I got diagnosed at a very, very young age. So I don't remember, being diagnosed, but I have actually been diagnosed with autism. So yeah. Hmm. I should ask my parents more about the details.
Honestly can't remember which, but if I'd gotten my diagnosis just a few months earlier, the DSM-5 would have been out, and so I wonder if I would have been diagnosed as having Asperger's instead. Autism and Asperger's, while supposedly differing in severity, were generally considered the same thing, a sort of social impairment. They affect
I really wish you didn't pronounce Asperger's that way. It is just so distractingly weird.
the way you see the world, the way you communicate and socialize, your ability to pick up on social cues and reciprocate and interpret emotions. Some autistic people are seen as incredibly aloof and unempathetic. They can't really comprehend other people's sadness or their anger. Some are just seen as awkward or strange. Autistic people of all kinds tend to experience anxiety in social settings, struggle to process information, and be very subject to sensory overload. As a high-functioning autistic, I have experienced most of these things and still experience some of them today, but I am capable of functioning by myself. I cook for myself, I take care of hygiene, I keep track of finances, so on and so forth. I needed help with this stuff for longer than most, but I've been able to learn how to function independently.
Hmm. I'm pretty similar. I'm rather similar.
Independently. Low functioning autism is considered the more severe version. Take everything I just mentioned and turn it up a notch. I have limited experience with people with low functioning autism myself, but I know some people who have more, and generally I hear the same things. It's what you hear about high functioning autism, but more extreme. Generally, those with low functioning autism need help all their lives. They can struggle to emote whatsoever, and their inability to perceive their surroundings can lead to them hurting themselves. I need to be clear, I'm speaking very generally here, and I don't mean to speak for all people with all kinds of autism. As hard as my condition has made my life, it would be disingenuous to pretend that I'm not incredibly privileged when compared to someone with low functioning autism, and I can't give you a first-hand account of their experience because it's very different. Something else I can't really give you a definitive answer.
Yeah, same here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I do kind of feel sorry for the people with low functioning autism. Yeah.
On is why the distinctions between Asperger's, autism, and PDD-NOS were done away with in the DSM-5. None of the specialists I saw ever really spoke about it with me. From research, I've been given a general idea that the term autism spectrum disorder was coined largely because there weren't any consistent biological features that differentiate autism and Asperger's, and because it made diagnosing people easier, thus giving more people access to related support. However, much with
Yep.
most of the facts I'm trying to give you here, you need to take this with a pinch of salt. Hopefully, the complicated nature of this condition is becoming clear, and information about it is constantly changing. I've read very few books cover to cover in my life, but books about autism are some of the few I have. Nowadays, it feels like almost everything I learned from them is outdated, and it's pretty exhausting. In 2019, the World Health Organization reported that 1 in every 160 children have autism spectrum disorder. Autism Society cites via the CDC that 1% of the world population have autism spectrum disorder, and that the prevalence of the condition increased.
1%. Huh. It seems like these to realize that 1% of the world population is still a lot of people. because there's a lot of people in the world, about 8 billion. So yeah, 1% of 8 billion, still like millions of people. Wait, is it? Okay, no, I gotta, no, let me calculate this. Okay, so 8 0 0 0 0 0. Okay, so 8. How many zeros in billion? Okay, let's see. It's about done. Yeah, yeah, 9. Yeah. Okay, so yes, that's 9. Okay, so 9 divided by 1%. Oh, wait a minute. I'm doing that backwards. Yeah, it's 1%. Divided by uh, okay, I forget calculating it. I'm just gonna Google it. What is where's the percentage sign? Where is it? Ah, there it is. What is 1% of 8? Wait, what's that got? It's got there you go. Percent of huh? Okay, why is it so hard to figure it out here? Okay, okay, why aren't there any commas to break up with zeros? Okay, 3 zeros. Okay, so apparently it's 80 million. Okay, that's enough time wasted. And dang it, now I gotta sing it up again. Okay. Alright, okay, there you go, good. Alright.
By 6 to 15% every year from 2002 to 2010. It's supposedly the fastest growing developmental disability. All of this to say,
Yeah. By the fun fact, it's not so much that the disorder is spreading. It's so much that it's more so that more and more people are getting diagnosed. It's getting easier to diagnose people with it and all that.
it's a lot more common than you might think, and it's only getting more common every year as our screening and testing are improving and we're able to give more accurate diagnoses. The numbers are going to keep going up. Autism spectrum disorder is estimated to be about 4 times more prevalent in boys than it is in girls, and girls who do have it generally show less immediately noticeable symptoms and are supposedly naturally more likely to mask said symptoms. This obviously makes it much harder to diagnose. And as if things weren't labyrinthine enough already, there is one final complication: related conditions. There are numerous other social conditions like ADHD, OCD, bipolar disorder, and many others that are not on the autism spectrum per se, but share many commonalities with the conditions on the spectrum. Depression and anxiety are things often shared between people with autism and people with bipolar disorder. Obsessiveness is obviously a key factor in OCD that people with ASD often also suffer with. Trouble maintaining attention is shared between those with ADHD and those with autism spectrum disorder. The list goes on. When you have one social condition like this, you are extremely likely to have or at least show symptoms of one or countless others. It often functions like a chain reaction. It's really uncommon to just have one. One can often set off many others. There's an undeniable overlap between autism spectrum disorder and these related conditions. To even further complicate things, ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, used to also be known in some cases as ADD, or just attention deficit disorder. I've spent a lot of my life thinking that I had a lot of symptoms of ADD, only to just recently learn that ADD is apparently an outdated term that isn't used anymore, as there's no meaningful differentiation to be had, and thus everything that I thought constituted ADD has now simply merged into ADHD, which is a related condition to autism spectrum disorder, which used to be considered.
I've always had a hard time to seeing what's the difference between ADHD and ADD. Like, it's like, I mean, what's the difference? Are they both the same thing, but one's the outdated term for it, and or something? Yeah.
Multiple separate disorders. Hopefully I've made my point about how fucking complicated this all is enough times now. These related conditions can obviously cause a lot of confusion when it comes to getting diagnosed, and I wonder if years down the line when the DSM-6 is released, these conditions such as OCD, ADHD, bipolar and the like will also officially be folded into the autism spectrum. I'm gonna link some sources and generally helpful reading material in the description. A lot of this stuff I found really helpful for the making of this video. With how much facts are changing, it's very possible that I've messed up at least something in this fact-heavy section, so keep an eye on the pinned comment as I'm going to be updating it with any necessary corrections to the best of my ability for the foreseeable future. Again, as always, I encourage you to do your own research above all else, and have a good read of some of these sources if you're interested. One last little warning in particular about the organisation Autism Speaks, by the way. They're not completely full of shit, and some of the things they say are very much in line with what other reputable sources say, but for numerous reasons they have a very spotty track record.
I've heard about Autism Speaks, and they're honestly generally terrible organization. Absolutely terrible. And thankfully I have not had to deal with those idiots personally, but I've heard a lot about them, and honestly, terrible. Do not trust them at all. Okay, they have no idea what they're talking about. They are completely. I mean, honestly, yeah, and apologies to all the retarded people in the audience, but and I don't mean this to offend you, but these people are, in a way, retarded.
Good. I'm gonna link a video by the channel.
Oh boy. What is this year? 4 years, yeah. The Illuminati. Yeah, honestly, the video itself is not bad, but the person who made this video, I mean, honestly, I can't even begin. Where do I even start with this person?
Illuminati on some of the.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just say, most people would not, tell you to check out this video by the Illuminati anymore these days. Yeah, I'm not gonna get into the details. You can go ahead and go into the details yourself about it. Oh boy.
Their transgressions in the description. I'd recommend going to other sources before them, and if you do end up on their site, just take what you're reading with a pinch of salt if it's not backed up by others. It should go without saying that I was a pretty weird kid. I mean, I'm a weird adult, but I make money doing it, so no one can say shit to me. Growing up, I had all the telltale signs, though no one in my family knew it yet. I struggled with sensory overload. Bright flashing lights and loud noises scared me. I couldn't go to school discos or fireworks nights because it was just too much. I couldn't speak properly. I had to have speech therapy until I was about 4 or 5 years old to learn how to pronounce letters like.
Yeah. I've seen a speech therapist throughout my life as well. I've seen a few speech therapists and all that. Unfortunately, I still, have some difficulty pronouncing, some things and all that. I mean, one thing's for certain is that I still have trouble with the uh, with or just the little R in general. Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is the reason why, in the past, people have, I thought I was from a different country. Like, I have people, think I'm from England or, France or some other, or just Europe in general or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'm, just an American. Okay, I'm very American and all that. So yeah.
B and M because the concept of putting your lips together to make sounds was just completely lost on me without it.
Wait, you had difficulty pronouncing M and
M
B?
because the concept of 4 or 5 years old to learn how to pronounce letters like B and M because
Well, I mean, I guess in fairness, he had trouble when he was 4 and 5 years old. So, I mean, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that when I was a kid, I was pretty unintelligent to most people. Although my sister Abigail, she when I was really little, she would, basically, translate for me, so to speak, and all that. My parents didn't like doing that because they wanted me to learn how to speak on my own and not just rely on somebody else. But yeah. One of these days, I think I would like to make another web comic where the main character is autistic and all that. In fact, I have been, thinking of making another web comic in addition to the one I'm currently making. Another web comic where the main character is autistic. I've been thinking about that for quite a few years now and all that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, yeah, when I do eventually make another web comic, I'll try to let you know. So remember to subscribe, so that way you know when I will do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because the concept of putting your lips together to make sounds was just completely lost on me without it being explained. I also had this lisp where I slurred my S's up until I went back to speech therapy very briefly to correct it at about 16 or 17, though it's still there a little bit. I used to do this thing where I felt the need to repeat the last word of every sentence I spoke to myself. I'd often whisper it quietly without realizing, and sometimes I even did it with the last words of sentences other
Mm-hmm. Yep, yeah, yeah, yeah. I can relate to that.
people spoke. I only learnt last year that there's a name for that. It's called echolalia, and when you do it with your own sentences, it's called palalalia. I spent pretty much my entire life thinking I was just a freak for this, but finding out that it was actually a thing kind of blew my mind. A lot of these things are the kind of thing you
Huh. Hmm. I never considered it that way. To be honest, I figured that yeah, it makes sense. Like you say that you repeat something to yourself, to just kind of make sure that you said it right and all that. And I mean that's what I think. But just you repeat it to yourself. So to make sure you pronounced it correctly the first time and all that. Yeah. I mean, that's how I always, interpreted it and all
do as
that.
a kid, but as you get older, you learn to grow out of them. I obviously don't repeat the last word of every sentence anymore, and because I had to actively work harder at learning how to speak, I think it's made me at least a bit more articulate than
Yeah, I read in the book that when Albert Einstein was a young boy, he would repeat, what he just said to himself and all that. I read that was a habit Albert Einstein had when he was younger, and that when he was young boy. Yeah.
than the average person. I can deal with most loud noises and flashing lights, though I do still get a bit of sensory overload. I am particularly vulnerable to jump scares in movies. I can't deal with that shit. And pufferfish? Forget about it. Let's jump scare the fish. Fuck that. Don't like them. Thing is, you might be able to shake.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of jump scares either. Although I don't think most people do like jump scares. I mean, they're all called scares for a reason. They're scary.
Take off a lot of these eccentricities just from growing up and becoming more self-aware, but all the small things are always gonna be there.
Dang it, I just realized it's out of sync with my phone there.
Just from growing up and don't like them. With that shit. And pufferfish? Forget about it. That's just.
You have no idea the pain I went through to get this image off of Google Images. Yeah, he's right. I do not know the pain. Yeah, you know, it's probably gonna hard to get to edit videos and all that. I mean, in case you couldn't tell, I'm not very good at editing videos. Hence why I make reaction videos. And because I know I basically don't know how to edit videos real good and all that. You know, I've been thinking of maybe hiring a editor. You know, when I get enough money to afford an editor to edit videos and whatnot, so that way they can be better quality and whatnot.
Eccentricities just from growing up and becoming more self-aware, but all the small things are always gonna be there. My mum was often completely confounded by my inability to comprehend instructions. Unless I was given extremely specific and detailed instructions, I could almost never complete just about any task. I couldn't use any household appliances. I was terrible at finding things, even if I was told exactly where they were, which drove her nuts sometimes. And my organizational skills were practically non-existent. I needed help getting ready for school, help tidying my room. You know, I still suck at finding things, and I truly don't know why. I swear it feels like everyone else just gets lucky when they look for something I can't find. I thought I'd improve at this over time, but apparently not. It took me a long time to get a grasp of these things that are just second nature for other people. I learned how to cook much later than other people, how to use a dishwasher. I only really got a grasp of how to operate the washing machine a couple years ago after having it previously explained to me dozens of times, and
There's difficulty with dishwashers and washing machines. I mean, to be fair, you know, dishwashers, I can understand that. Dishwashers can be a bit complicated and all that. You know, you gotta, set things, a certain way. You gotta, use the right thing for the dishwasher and all that. You know, real complicated machinery. Honestly, I prefer, doing my dishes by hand, and because of the complicated nature of it. You know, but I mean, using a washing machine, washing machines are pretty easy. I mean, they're quite easy. Of course, then again, to be fair, I typically just use the same settings, regardless of what they're washing for the most part. You know, honestly, with some things, I'm like, okay, maybe I should do different settings and all that. But honestly, washing machines are pretty easy to use and whatnot. They're pretty simple machines. Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least for me anyway.
even then, I still find ways to mess it up to this day. School, as you can imagine,
relate to that.
was rough. Not super early on, as we're all little kids and everyone's a bit odd, but as I got older, I started to kind of separate myself from the pack in terms of weirdness. Strangely, I was abnormally good academically. I was just
Yep. Yeah. I was did well academically. Now, honestly, when it comes to school, I know what I struggle mostly with is getting my homework done, and everything I was it's pretty good. I especially when it came to tests. I mean, honestly, when it comes to tests, tests in school were always easy for me. I mean, honestly, it's like I've barely studied for tests and all that. And honestly, I think there have only been like a few times, if ever, that I ever studied for a test and all that. I kind of didn't really understand what I would need to study for a test. All you have to do is pay attention in class. I mean, if you pay attention in class then the test will be easy. Honestly, I think the subject that I struggled the most with would be math and all that. Although, of course, math is pretty easy and all that. Although, then when we eventually got to long division, is when it started to get a bit more difficult for me, and it kind of just got a bit more and just complicated and more difficult as time went on and all that. So in high school, had to take a special math class, for and all that. So yeah, yeah, I had to take a special math class in high school because I did not really do good too well with the math in middle school and all that. But yeah, with all the other subjects, I did pretty good and all that. I mean, honestly, the only thing I struggled with was homework. Yeah, I think that's the main reason why, my grades were pretty much typically or average at best is because, I was very bad at getting my homework done and all that. Everything else, easy.
Consistently, naturally better at maths and English than 90% of the rest of my classes, and the only ones who were better than me were the ones with the really strict parents who made them revise religiously. With English in particular, language and words just kind of made sense to me, and despite my
Mm-hmm.
speech impediments, I often had people remarking on how well spoken I was for my age. It was the menial things where I was different. My handwriting was barely legible, and my hand
Yeah. I mean, I've people criticize my handwriting. Honestly, I think my handwriting's a bit fine. I mean, sure, some of the spacing, I do kind of mess up, and so my letters are a bit big and all that. But yeah, I say I'm pretty good at my handwriting's pretty good. I don't really know how to do cursive, but that's because they didn't really try teaching us to do cursive in school. Really, I mean, they kind of tried a little bit, but they didn't really, work real hard to teach us its cursive and all that. So yeah. Honestly, they barely taught cursive when I was going to school. So I think that's the thing. A lot of people my age can relate to. Not being able to write in cursive and all that. It's actually kind of shame because if you know how to write cursive, then reading cursive would be a lot easier, and that's very important when it comes to history and all that because throughout the history, a lot of people wrote in cursive, and that can be pretty hard to decipher if you don't know cursive and all that. And being able to read what people wrote is very important. Okay, it's very important for studying if you want to study history and all that. hmm but yeah, honestly, I think the thing that I disliked the most about school is, the other students and all that. I say that's my biggest problem was the other students. And some of the dogs that I had to deal with as well. That it's funny, sometimes the adults can be bothersome like the kids. Typically, although honestly, I see the fellow students are way more bothersome than any of the staff and all that. Like, I mean, the staff. I mean, the staff are better than the students. I mean, at least I would say, on average, I think everyone can agree that on average, the teachers and staff members are much better than your fellow students and peers. Mm-hmm. Although I did have, friends and all that. Other the yeah. Yeah. Throughout my years at going to school, I did have no friends. Mm-hmm. Of course, I moved around a bit bunch, throughout my life. So, honestly, I never really had a consistent set of friends, but every time I went to school, I would eventually, get friends and all that. So that's good. Although I never really close friends and all that. Yeah, but just friends. Yeah.
Would start to really hurt after writing for any extended period of time. Apparently, I held my pencil weird and had to get a special grip attachment for it, which
Yeah, never heard of that for me. I didn't know, at first I did, hold pencils drawing, I would hold them like this instead of like this and all that. So, yeah. The same thing with silverware as well. I used to, hold them like this or this. Oh, and then I just fist around, like toddlers do, instead of using it with more elegance and form, to better control it and all that. Mhm. I still I don't know how to use chopsticks though. Yeah. I still cannot eat with chopsticks. So yeah. But like I said, I'm American, so I don't have to worry about that too much. And it's a good thing I'm not Asian. It's yep. Sometimes it's good to be white.
aware makes it sound like some kind of submachine gun, but if I didn't have this grip, I'd work marks and calluses into the side of my finger with the way I wrote, and I just didn't have the hand-eye coordination to write holding it any other way. I was
How the heck were you holding it? Now I'm curious.
extremely hyperactive. I didn't know how to sit still. I still don't today. I'm always bobbing a leg up and down or tapping something with my finger.
Hmm. Yeah. I relate to that. Yeah, that's pretty relatable.
I was one of the loudest kids in class. I talked the most. I'd raise my hand the most. I was all over the place during lunch.
Hmm. I mean, I certainly, really, I mean, honestly, I think I raised my hand the most in history class, but not because I had any questions, but because I had things to add to it. Because I knew a lot about history, and therefore, I wanted to add, another detail, for the class as well. Yes, I was that kind of annoying kid, and the annoying know-it-all, that even the teacher doesn't really like that much. I think, yeah, generally, I think the students on average, before liked liked it when I share my knowledge more than the teacher did. I mean, at least with high school and all that. Hmm. Uh, Honestly, I think that was when it happened the most was when I was in high school, because that was when I knew a lot about history, and I had built up a great knowledge of history by the time I got into high school and all that. So I would raise my hand, and it's just in the hopes that the teacher would let me add something to the conversation and that. And even when we weren't in class, like I would generally share my knowledge about various topics with anyone who would like to hear them and all that. Hmm. I always did like it when somebody would say that I was smart. I always liked it when a girl I was talking to said that I was pretty smart or that. Yeah, I typically got along with girls a lot throughout school and all that. Hmm. Of course, I was was friends with boys as well, but but I don't know. For some reason, I like to to go on as a bunch as well. A bit more so than the boys. I don't know. I guess most because generally as interested in sports like most of the boys were, and I just was kind of used to just talking with girls a bunch or something. Honestly, I'm not entirely certain. Mm. What? Oh yeah, yeah. I enjoyed talking with girls a bunch when I was younger and all that. Mm. But yeah, 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 yeah. Mm.
I also struggle to maintain attention for extended periods of time, both in class and in almost any conversation. I just zone out and start thinking about other things, and my teachers clearly noticed a lot of these little eccentricities. It's only in retrospect that I realize a lot of the little microaggressions that I endured. I have a very specific memory of being tasked with handing
Microaggressions?
out
What?
scissors for whatever reason to the
I don't get how I know there's some microaggressions. No, honestly, I think that's kind of ridiculous. And honestly, because microaggressions in general are typically kind of ridiculous. I mean, so sometimes there's a genuine microtransgression, but for the most part, it just. I mean, honestly, it's just little things. Yeah, that's not too big of a deal. Like, seriously, just ignore it and all that, and just go about your own day. No need to worry about every single little thing and all that. Because if you worry about every single little thing, then you won't have any time to enjoy life and all that. So I think one should try to enjoy life as much as they can and all that. I mean, that's not saying you should ignore your problems. No, no, you should certainly, take care of all your problems and all that. But, still, you should also, try to enjoy life as much as you can without, causing yourself any trouble in the future as well. Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
only in retrospect that I realize a lot of the little microaggressions that I endured. I have a very specific memory of being tasked with handing out scissors for whatever reason to the rest of the class, and I guess I took a very weird roundabout route. I was doing it pretty slowly. Again, I think my hand-eye coordination was failing me, and I distinctly remember my teacher saying to me at the time, quote, "You're not very good at doing that, are you, Bradley?" Which, now that I think about it, is like, why the fuck would you say that to a kid?
Well, I mean, they're not wrong. I mean, you were like you just said, you were doing it in a efficient manner. So yeah, yeah, you're not really good at it. Like, I don't see the problem here. They were just saying the truth. I mean, sure, the truth can hurt sometimes, but I mean, honestly, in a way, yeah, I think, but it's actually kind of good because, and then they know, okay, maybe this guy, shouldn't ask this guy to take care of this one thing, and instead should pick somebody else in order to, create the maximum, whatever efficiency for the good of the class and all that. Like, I don't see the problem. I mean, what's the problem here? There's zero problem.
Right? This is the kind of shit you deal with in all walks of life if you're anything like me. To everyone else, you are weird, and you have to put up with people side-eyeing you and chastising you for your incompetence at every turn. I'm not talking
Yeah,
just at school with
yeah,
pupils or even with
yeah,
teachers, I'm talking at home with family members too. Because with the autism spectrum, and especially with high-functioning autism and a lot of its related conditions, you don't have any physical giveaway signs that there's anything different about you. You can't see it, and so you look like an ordinary kid who's just stupid and incompetent, and that's how you'll be treated. That's how I was treated. So as my teachers started to
yeah,
realize that there was
yeah, yeah. Honestly, yeah, yeah. I really relate to that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Sometimes yeah, sometimes yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I've suffered with low self esteem. At very portions throughout my life. Yeah. And there have been a couple moments during my teenage years where I felt quite depressed and all that. Yeah. I'm doing pretty well now. I mean, I say I'm generally, pretty happy and all that. But there's still times when I do, or just suffer with low self-esteem and all that, and see myself as just some incompetent idiots and all that. Oh, dang, oh, dang, I just messed it up. Oh, dang, no, uh, 15. All right.
Something different about me, they rounded me up into this secret little focus group of other kids who also had their own quirks. We'd be called into a room together for 10 minutes or so randomly during class, and none of the teachers ever told the other kids what we were going for despite their blatant curiosity. I can't remember how they worded it to us, but I remember being told very gently that this focus group of sorts was for kids who were different, exceptionally gifted and talented in some areas and in need of extra support in others. My teacher started talking.
Yeah, I relate to that a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I had a special ed, throughout much of my education. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had special ed classes and all that throughout my period as a student and all that.
To my mum specifically about some of the things they'd noticed about me. One thing led to another, and we found ourselves referred to a dyslexia research centre. The teacher at the head of this little focus group expressed doubts that I had dyslexia based on my English skills and advanced reading age, but it was the closest thing we had.
Oh, so that's what was going on. Oh, so that's why they were collecting a bunch of kids. Oh, yeah. Honestly, can't relate. Nothing like that ever happened to me. I was never rounded up in a group for the purposes for some, just but people to research dyslexia and all that. Honestly, I'm quite thankful for that. Like, yeah, honestly, I wouldn't say I suffer from dyslexia and all that. I don't think I have any dyslexic problems. No, I'm just autistic and all that. I say that's pretty much the only problems, psychologically that I have. I mean, pretty much for the most part, and all that. Honestly, that's pretty wild right there. Hmm.
To any kind of autism or Asperger's research facility near us at the time. What my teacher actually suspected that I had was dyspraxia. So, dyspraxia is a bit of a weird one.
Huh.
I know it primarily as a motor impulse disorder. Basically, it.
Huh. I've heard of that term a few times, but never really knew what it was. Huh. So this is what it is. Huh. Honestly, I wouldn't blame the teacher. I mean, from what he has said, yeah. I mean, one could, quite easily, as I think it is dyspraxia and all that. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense that the teacher would come to that conclusion.
It negatively affects your hand-eye coordination and general dexterity. However, there's a lot more to it in regards to your behavior and communication. It can be linked to temper tantrums, inability to focus, social awkwardness, lack of confidence. Basically, it's another one of those fun related conditions that shares a lot with what we now know as the autism spectrum, but isn't actually on the spectrum. Daniel Radcliffe has dyspraxia. Fun little fact for you there. I feel like we could use a fun fact in this video right now. The fun fact to unfun fact ratio is looking a bit skewed so far, isn't it? So I went to this research facility and was assessed. They had me reading and writing and just talked to me a lot. And eventually the woman there concluded that I had hyperlexia. The way
What?
she told us, it was like she was talking about fucking Superman. She was like, it's not dyspraxia, it's not dyslexia, it's hyperlexia.
I've never heard of hyperlexia in my entire life. What the heck is hyperlexia? That sounds stupid.
And me and my mum.
I mean, no offense to anybody who has hyperlexia. Okay, I guess it doesn't sound that stupid. But yeah, I wonder if it's gonna say more about this hypolexia. I've never heard of it.
We're just kind of like, okay. Now, whilst I did and still do exhibit a lot of the symptoms of hypolexia, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole because we saw a different specialist a few months later and she told me that I do in fact have dyspraxia, which I got an official diagnosis for. Even if I do have hypolexia, which is entirely possible, I don't even really care at this point because, as you can see, there's so much overlap and there's so many related conditions. I have official diagnoses for ASD and dyspraxia, but I can say I'm pretty certain I have like 5 other things. It's just
Okay, but what is hypraxia? Okay, I understand. I'm gonna have to look this up. Hypolexia. Hypolexia. I've never heard of it. Okay, hypolexia. Hypolexia is a syndrome where a child can read at a level far beyond the age, often before age 5, without prior reading instruction. That's it? Huh. Well, I guess that explains why it's called hypolexia. Hmm. Yeah, lexica, that's related to the word lexicon, which means basically vocabulary. So I see what it's called, hypolexia. Yeah, that makes sense. Hmm. Yeah, now it all makes sense now. Hmm.
if I go around trying to figure out exactly what I do and don't have, what I only show symptoms of, what I fully have per se, then I'm going to spend my whole life talking to specialists who give me different answers and can't really tell me anything definitive. Just being told you have ASD is confusing enough as it is, and as I talk to you now, I'm at a point in my life where I'm comfortable enough knowing what I know about myself, and I don't think I need to give myself any more questions. So I just don't really think about hypolexia. I don't have an official diagnosis. The woman just told me she thought I had it as a kid. That's good enough for me. This is why I find it hard to be angry at all the people who have, for all intents and purposes, treated me unfairly. Not just the classmates and the teachers with their snide comments about my ability to do menial tasks, but my friends, my family members. Growing up, my brother and my dad were the worst offenders. They just found me hilarious. I was clumsy, sensitive, and again, seemingly incompetent. And
I mean, honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I don't get upset if somebody, finds what I am doing hilarious because I mean, why would I be upset at making people happy? I mean, making people happy is a wonderful thing. I guess it's what they're laughing at some ridiculous thing I did. Whether or not I did that ridiculous thing on purpose, it doesn't matter because they're happy. And honestly, the fact that they're happy makes me happy. So why should you be upset that you're making somebody happy? You should never be upset to make somebody happy, whether or not you intended that in the first place. Okay, making people feel happy is a wonderful thing. Okay, I mean, honestly, I was. It's truly a wonderful thing, Honestly, whenever I make somebody happy, yeah, I always make just, I laugh as well. Okay, I make somebody laugh. That makes me, want to laugh. Guess I'm happy. Yeah, it's that simple. Huh. No, honestly, no, I think this guy is a bit of a sport or something. Come on, hey, whoa, you complaining about making people happy? That's ridiculous.
every time I tripped over my own feet or asked a supposedly stupid question, they laughed at me. And it always upset me. And
Okay, I mean, okay, laughing at because somebody asked a stupid question. Okay, and that's a bit cruel. I know that. But getting upset because somebody laughed at you, tripping on your own feet. I mean, I mean, why get upset about that? I mean, come on. Come on, see, so you're ridiculous. It's better that they're laughing instead of getting upset because that's the alternative. Pretty much. I mean, either that or sympathy. Okay, I mean, there's three choices they could, three things they could do if you to make a clumsy thing. They feel shy, which sorry for you, which pretty nice. And they get upset with you, which is the worst thing. Okay, no, and or they find it funny, which is honest pretty good. That thing. I mean, as long as they're not get upset with you for being clumsily, I see it as a good thing. I see it as a plus. No, that. No, them laughing because I asked a stupid question now. I mean, honestly, I understand getting upset with that because, it's like the kind of just, you feel like your intelligence is being insulted there. So I understand getting upset if somebody, laughed at you for asking a question. Not that. Because what they should do is not laugh at you for asking a question. They should answer the question and all that. But yeah, getting upset because they laughed because you tripped. Come on. I mean, the only time to get upset over somebody laughing at you tripping is if they're the one that tripped you. Okay, so when they didn't trip you, then you should not get upset that they laughed. This guy is being ridiculous, I say. Ridiculous. Come on. Come on now. Get off your high horse. Stop being so prideful. Get your eyes. Stop being so prideful. And enjoy life.
In response, my dad always, without fail, would say, "We're not laughing at you, son. We're laughing with you." And years later, I realized that was bullshit.
Yeah, it's bullshit because you're not laughing. Why aren't you laughing? It's your own dang idiot. Idiot. Look at you. Getting so you're so focused on your own mistakes that you're not realizing that you're spreading joy. You are spreading joy. Laugh. Embrace the fact that you are spreading joy. You're spreading joy, so you may be spreading joy unintentionally, but you're still spreading joy. That is wonderful. That's great. Okay? I mean, sure, they are wrong to say they aren't laughing at they're laughing with you because they are laughing because you're not laughing with them. Okay, you make that statement true by laughing with them. Okay, then they won't be lying and you'll be happy. You'll all be happy. It's a simple solution. Why can't you think of that? All you gotta do is change your perspective. And the world will be a much wonderful, better place.
Of course they were laughing at me. There's no way you could consider the ridicule I endured anything but being laughed at. My cousins would play little pranks on me just to see how I'd react. My mum would lose her temper.
Okay, now yeah, getting upset over that, yeah, I mean, seriously, that I always, get a bit upset about, that ad and all that, like, seriously, people who know you just to get a reaction out of you, those people are the worst, and all that, like, seriously. You're annoying some person to just get a reaction. They're not your little plaything, you jackass. They're a person with their own feelings and all that. Get some empathy, you psychopathic, percent, you jerk. Meaning, just rude, unpleasant pile of shit. I said it. You're a rude and pleasant pile of shit. Hate to say it, but it's true. Okay, if you annoy somebody, just to get a reaction out of them, you're a filthy pile of shit.
With me when I messed something up, which was often, and yet If I have this condition and I can't fully understand it, and the specialists and professionals dedicated to it can't fully understand it, then how the hell can I expect them to understand it? Especially when, in a lot of these instances, I'm talking about being a little kid, before the idea that there was something different about me was crystallized, before my teacher referred us to this dyslexia research center, and before my dyspraxia diagnosis, which was a little under 10 years before my official autism diagnosis. So, let's skip ahead to secondary school. This is the most embarrassing part. Despite being the way that I was, I had friends in primary school. I got along with people. I was settled. When it came time to move up, almost all of my friends went to a different secondary school than me. And this upset me a bit, sure, but I was still ready to start at a new school by myself and be a big kid. Or at least, I thought I was. When I started secondary school, I cried so much. I literally became infamous for it. I would cry all the way through all of my classes to the point where I actively became a distraction to the lesson and would often have to be removed. The kids obviously found me wildly entertaining. I was judged. I was a laughing stock. The worst part was I couldn't
Oh
really
my
tell.
god, that's terrible. Oh my god, that's horrible. Oh man, I really feel sorry for you. Oh man, yeah.
Tell you why this was. Sure, I was upset that I didn't know anyone there and that my friends were somewhere else, but this still felt like an overreaction. I'd often make myself ill and have to go to the toilets to throw up. I'd refuse to go to school and do anything to get out of it. My mum had to come into the school and talk to the teachers to try and do something, anything about it. I didn't realize it at the time, but what I was experiencing here, in its rawest form, was anxiety.
No, I thought I was gonna say depression, but anxiety. Yeah, that also makes sense. Uh,
I'd never felt anything like.
in fact, that makes more sense. That would definitely explain the throwing up in the toilet. Yeah. I think anxiety would cause that. No, that. Yeah, yeah. Anxiety would definitely cause that, and not depression. I don't think depression causes you to throw up at all. Yeah.
Like this before. I had to have a counsellor. I took Rescue Remedy, which is an anti-anxiety flower remedy to calm me down. I guess what was happening to me, what with starting a new school where I didn't know anyone, was a form of sensory overload. And eventually, over time, I was able to settle in and calm down.
Honestly, going to a different screen, never really bothered me. And I mean, honestly, I never got bothered, dude. And probably because, I think I might have gotten, pretty used to, going to a different place, pretty early on in my life. So, maybe I just was, used to the idea of, and going to new place and seeing new people and all that. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Maybe I got used to the idea of moving about at a young age that moving never really bothered me too much and all that. Mm. And don't get me wrong, I do I miss seeing some people and all that. And I suppose, I mean, honestly, I think it's supposed, a bit difficult now that I no longer go to school because, because with going from one school to another school, you're just meeting new people all the time. You're spending a lot of time with these new people. But now that you're adult, it's you don't really get as many chances to really interact with new people as much, and get to become friends with the new people you meet as much. It's a bit more difficult to get to make new friends when you're a fully grown adult and all that. It's a lot more difficult to do that, to get to make friends as an adult.
But it wasn't easy, and I had a reputation now that followed me until I moved away 3 years later and started at a different secondary school where the story was much the same to a lesser extent. I didn't cry.
Ah, yes. One of the most terrible reputations you have. The reputation. of crybaby. Yeah, 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 I'm slightly joking, but yeah, that's a terrible reputation to have. Yeah, yeah, I don't blame you for just for not wanting to have that reputation. No, nobody wants to have the reputation of crybaby. That is a terrible reputation to have. Oh man, one would be terrified to have that reputation, rightfully so. Truly terrible reputation.
Cry all the way through my classes because I was older and had gotten more of a handle on myself, but I was a nervous wreck for the first few months. I tell you this because, well, I'm going to divert real quick here. I had a tutor in college called Mel. When I was telling her about all the anxiety and embarrassment I dealt with in school, she told me a story of how she, as a child in school, was asked a question she didn't know the answer to, and it made her so nervous that she wet herself in front of the whole class. It's embarrassing, right? And I
Oh
couldn't
my
believe that
god.
someone of this status, a college
Uh,
tutor, was telling me a story this embarrassing.
oh my god. That is like one of the worst things to happen. Oh my god, that is literally, quite literally one of the absolute worst things that could happen. Oh boy. Mm.
But it made me feel so much better. It was like she'd lifted a whole weight off my shoulders. Obviously, I don't have that same status. I don't expect you to be like, whoa, the guy who made that Pokemon versus a Billion Lions video cried all the way through school. I feel much better now. But if you've had an experience anything like me, I hope sharing this with you has helped make you feel at least a bit better. Now, I could talk a lot more about growing up in school and whatnot, but if I did, we'd be here all day. I think you get a pretty good picture of what it was like from what I've explained so far. So instead, I want to talk a bit about what it's like to have autism now, in my early 20s. There are three pillars, if you will, of my autistic young adult experience, and they're not going to sound particularly optimistic, so I apologize in advance. They are identity, paranoia, and guilt. Let's start with identity. I don't mean to question the healthcare professionals, I don't think I know better than them, but I will say the choice to fold numerous conditions into the autism spectrum as we now know it, especially when you consider all those related conditions that overlap with it, has been a huge point of confusion for me in my life. Because when you're told that you are on the autism spectrum, what you're being told is that you have or may have any number of conditions or exhibit any varying number of symptoms of these numerous conditions, and you're not going to be able to get anything more concrete than that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't blame me for just having trouble with that. Yeah. Just realized I don't have anything of worth that to this point tale.
And what does that
Seriously.
mean? Do I have Asperger's? Do I have autism? Do I show symptoms of ADHD, OCD, schizophrenia? How many symptoms? Could you say I just have these things? When you're told that you are on the autism spectrum or that you have autism spectrum disorder, what does that even mean? Well, a lot of it you're just going to have to figure out yourself. Self-diagnosing is very unhealthy and also very unhelpful to the cause of people actually diagnosed with conditions, so I don't like to definitively
Yeah.
say that I have anything I'm not officially diagnosed with, and nor should
Mm-hmm.
you. But from my lived
Yeah,
experience,
just
I'm 95% confident that I have ADHD. I have so many of the common symptoms, it would just make so many things in my life retroactively make sense. But even then, what if I do just
yeah. I mean, honestly, it's generally a good idea to not self-diagnose yourself. Yeah, because I mean, you're not an expert. I mean, you're not a trained professional, so it's hard. Plus, it is also kind of hard to look at oneself objectively and all that. Since I mean,
have
when it comes to your self and your own personal things, so many things are very subjective, especially since you tend to have strong emotions about said things and experiences and all that. So yeah, it's generally to smarter to have a trained professional, especially one who doesn't have any strong biases or no feelings about anything about you, to diagnose you, that. Since they are much more likely to give an objective and truthful answer.
Symptoms of it due to being on the spectrum that so overlaps with it? What if I just have it outright? How would I be able to tell? Does it even matter? It's like the same thing I said earlier with hyperlexia. I think I have it, and I think that's just going to have to be enough for me, because so many of the specialists on this spectrum are going to have different answers, and I can't waste my whole life chasing after these answers. I think the idea of calling it the autism spectrum was to stop these questions. Instead of constantly pondering over what you do and don't have, you were supposed to just be able to say to yourself, I am on the autism spectrum, and be comfortable with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really have any real problem with the autism spectrum being called the autism spectrum. In fact, I think there's quite, I think it's actually more helpful than not helpful, in my own opinion. I think he has a different opinion here.
That should end the questions, but it hasn't for me. We are very eccentric people by nature. Of course, we're going to question these things. And so, living with autism is constantly questioning yourself and grappling with your sense of identity. I used to constantly ask myself what I would be like if I didn't have autism. I know that's probably not healthy, but I couldn't help
Yeah,
it.
that's
And
not
furthermore,
healthy.
because you're told that you belong on this wildly complicated spectrum,
Yeah, that's really not healthy. You should not wonder what would I be like if I wasn't autistic. I mean, because honestly, from what I've heard and from what I think, I mean, honestly, being autistic is an integral part of you. It's a part of you. Okay, it's part of who you are. Okay, you are autistic. You're not somebody with autism. You are autistic. So I mean, so not only is it not healthy, but honestly, it's pretty hard to imagine what you would be like if you weren't autistic. Like, it would be a very, very different person and all that. So honestly, how I would one even begin to answer the hypothetical question, unless one were to be God. That I mean, let's face it, you're not God. So therefore, you can answer that question, and therefore, if you can answer that question, then why bother even asking it? Asking yourself that question. So yeah, not only is it not only is it hard to do, but it's also unproductive and all that. In every sense of the word, you should not do it.
spectrum with so many different variables and conditions, you constantly ask yourself how much of the things I do are really me and how much of it is the autism. Like I say, what would I be like with
Don't think of it that way. Don't think of the autism as something entirely separate from you. Okay, it is not something that is separate from you. It is a part of you. Okay, I mean, it's not like some disease. Okay, it's just a aspect of yourself and all that.
without it? I'll give you an example. I have an extremely fucked up sleep schedule. It's why I have Nocturnal Fudge as my Twitter handle and my Twitch username and all this other stuff. The hours I'm asleep and awake can change pretty much.
Ah, so that explains his username here. Oh, it's a variant of that other username of his. Oh,
Every day, but I seem naturally predisposed to being asleep.
do wonder about the profile picture here. Cause not gonna lie, I do not like that profile picture. It's kind of creepy. That's a rather unsettling profile picture there. I really don't like it. It's like a really cursed version of Barney the dinosaur.
Sleep all day and awake all through the night. I genuinely feel the most energized and motivated to be productive at night, and I have no energy during the day. Strange sleeping patterns and insomnia are a common occurrence for people on the autism spectrum. So, are my sleeping troubles because of that? Or do I have delayed sleep phase syndrome or some other kind of sleeping disorder? Is something out of whack with my circadian rhythm? I don't know. and I don't think I ever will. And these are the kinds of questions you
Honestly, I think usually when I get when I've been summoning, I think it's typically has to do with my circadian rhythm and all that. Yeah.
you will ask yourself on a near daily basis if you are autistic.
Since I think when I do get an insomnia, I know it's rather infrequently, and it can be just once in a long while, or once in a short while. I mean, it's pretty infrequent when I get insomnia. So I think oftentimes when I get insomnia, it has more to do with the my circadian rhythm and all that getting a bit messed up.
The longest time, I just didn't know who I was. I had no sense of self. If someone asked me to describe myself to them, I genuinely don't think I.
Oh, well, that's quite terrible. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely I think a huge chunk of it has to do with the fact that he got diagnosed so late in life. I know that it has led to his problems with identity and whatnot.
I could, because all my life I'd been told that I was bizarre, and in an attempt to be less bizarre, I'd become this weird half measure who still couldn't tell you what conditions he had, how many symptoms he had of them, and exactly to what extent they affected his personality. And nowadays, I am finally comfortable with who I am. In fact, I'd say I'm really quite happy with the person I am today. I'm really proud of myself and how far I've come from being this scared kid who didn't really understand himself, but it didn't happen overnight. It took so much introspection, so many exhaustive analyses of every social encounter I've had, so many sleepless nights, and so many questions. I like to believe that the extra effort I've had to put in to come to this understanding has made me a far more emotionally intelligent person than most, but fuck, man. It'd be nice to just coast and not even have to think about these things like so many others. Which brings me to paranoia. Remember what I said earlier about how there aren't any physical signs that there's anything different about
Oh my god, he is just suffering from all sorts of kinds of things. Ugh.
you, and so people just assume that you're a dumb kid? Well, what if you spend your whole life working on your little quirks, coming to a better understanding of yourself, becoming a much more well-rounded person who's better equipped to deal with having autism, and then, as a direct result, people stop believing you? And even if they don't say that, you can feel it, or at least you think you can. Everything about the way this person looks at you and speaks to you, yeah, they think you're putting this all on for sympathy. This has happened to me a frankly disturbing amount of times. It's like you get punished for growing up and putting in the effort. Because no matter how hard you try to suppress these things about yourself, they will always show through every so often in one way or another. And when they do, and you try to explain yourself, well, you seem ordinary enough in every other way, so you must be making it up. Again, these are these little microaggressions you'll be living with. In your head, you're thinking about how badly you want to show people that you're not making it up. You're thinking if there's a way you can show them the diagnosis, you wouldn't have to put up with this, but maybe they don't doubt you at all, and you're just reading into it too much. I've had people, a family member in fact, outright tell me that they think I'm leaning on it so that people will go easy on me, but not everyone's like that. It's just hard to tell who. So, again, you'll be asking yourself more questions.
Oh my god, that's terrible. That is absolutely horrible.
Finally, there's the matter of guilt. I told this story in the 25k subscriber special video a while ago, so I won't go too in depth to avoid repeating myself too much. But the first ever job I had was at a mail sorting office, and the moment I arrived there on my first day, I felt like something was wrong. All these intrusive thoughts started to creep in, like, is this the rest of my life? I have to do this shit every day, 5 days a week. It started to feel exactly like I felt at secondary school again. And I'm not proud to admit this at all, but I lasted 2 hours. I walked out after that. It was winter, so it was pitch black outside, and I just went outside and sat down on this field nearby for a while, thinking about what a fuck up I was. I was so frustrated with myself, So many other people do this stuff. So many other people hold down regular jobs. Why the fuck can't I? What's so wrong with me? I got back home, obviously much earlier than I was expected to be home, and explained it to my mum. And since I got my diagnosis, she had tried so hard to be understanding. She had read just as many, if not more, books about autism than me. She had expressed regret for the way she used to lose her temper at me when I was a kid. She had generally been more patient with me, but after this, I could tell that even she was at the end of her rope. She wasn't angry, but she was exasperated. She just couldn't understand it. My brother, who worked 9 to 5 at a restaurant, judged me and apparently complained about me behind my back. Not even any of my friends could really understand this. They tried to be polite about it, but I could tell they thought I was being ridiculous as well. I just didn't have anyone I could confide in. Guilt doesn't even begin to describe it, because this isn't the first time I'd done something like this, you know? I freaked out when I started school, I freaked out during school, I freaked out around fucking bright lights and loud noises, and now this? I had disappointed my parents and my family, and there was no way around that, and my friends just didn't get it at all. At every turn, I felt like I was being reminded that this was just not a world made for someone like me. If one day at a regular job incited such a visceral response...
Oh my god, yeah, I know that feeling, yeah. I recognize that feeling that you not, I want, being tired of just living in this world and just wanting to just be in a perfect world, just wanting, to be just desire, being tired, just being just this imperfect person living in an imperfect world, and just wishing you were, just wanting to be, just a perfect person and live in just a perfect world, and just being a person without with no problems, live in a world without no problems, and just everything just being perfect and the way it should be, and all that. Yeah, yeah. Oh.
of dread and anxiety in me, then how the fuck am I supposed to make it in this world? How am I supposed to exist in this world? I won't...
I did not expect the F bomb there. Oh wow. that was surprising.
lie. I had some pretty dark thoughts around this time. I didn't try anything, but I don't know. At a point, it seemed like the only option for me. This has been my experience as a young adult with autism. Gone are the more physical aspects like the speech therapy and the writing grip, replaced with mental aspects like anxiety and depression. But it's not the whole experience. I've made a hell of a lot of strides in learning how to live with it, and dare I say, I've learned how to use it to my advantage. And when I do, it's incredibly fulfilling. I'm aware that over the course of this video, I may have made autism seem like the worst thing on planet Earth, but it's not. I tell you the grisliest parts of my experience so that if you've seen similar lows, maybe you can confide in a video like this. But what I really want you to take away from this is what I say next. I can say with 1000% sincerity that I am proud to be autistic. And if I were given the chance to change it and not be, I don't know if I'd take it. When I used to ask myself what it'd be like without it, I was obviously never able to come up with a surefire answer. But if it were even possible, if I even could just get rid of such a thing, I don't think I'd be the person I am now. And I want to be the person I am now. I like being the person I am now.
Yeah.
So whatever this thing or these things are that I have, it can't be that.
Yeah, being the person you are is nice. That's pretty
By
nice.
virtue, being on the autism spectrum makes you different. That's a word you'll hear people referring to you as a lot. And no matter how they may twist the meaning, whether intentionally or not, it's important to remember what that really means. It doesn't mean better, it doesn't mean worse. It means different, unique, exceptional. On one hand, autism hurts. It's going to make your life harder through no fault of your own, and that's not fair. But as I mentioned earlier, it's a different way of seeing things and understanding the world. And when you're growing up, you'll be taught that that way is wrong and incorrect because it's not compatible with the way the rest of the world operates. And in some areas, the things you do and the way you behave will be better off changed, and you'll be glad you were taught this, but you also risk losing sight of that intangible. If you are autistic, you are born with a unique perspective on the world, and you're not getting rid of that perspective anytime soon, so you might as well use it. I know a few people on the autism spectrum, and all of them are insanely good at maybe one, but usually multiple things. Those things are rarely ever socializing, they're usually in the arts. And I don't use the word talented because I think talent is a wildly overstated concept nowadays. Some of them are talented, sure, but more so than that, I think their unique perspective breathes life into the things they create. They're so different. The way they look at things, analyze, and approach gives the things they make inherent value. I just don't think anyone else could do it like them. I can't speak for everyone. If you can't see things my way, that's fine. You don't have to. These are complicated matters we're talking about here. I'm just offering you my perspective as someone who's been through the ringer in the hopes that it might be of some help. I truly believe that all these quirks and oddities that are used to demean us can be turned to our advantage and used to make us much better than anyone else would give us credit for. I used my own clumsiness as material during my brief stand-up stint. I lean into my eccentricities in my own videos, as I'm sure you're well aware. Some of the experience
Oh.
stint. I lean into my eccentricities in my own clumsiness as material during my brief.
Oh, so you finally learned that being clumsy and having people laugh and you being clumsy is actually a good thing. Wow! Who would have guessed that people, laughing at you, doing something, kind of stupid, can be actually a good thing. Another because you're spreading joy. Okay, even if you don't intend to spread joy, you are still spreading joy. Okay, and spreading joy is never a bad thing. Okay, it's never bad to, make other people happy and all that. Well, unless making those people happy by doing something abhorrently evil and all of that. But yeah, you're having a long, having people laugh at you for doing something stupid is not bad because you may and all that it's only bad if they intended if they purposely made you do something stupid like it's only bad if they pranked you or made you trip and all that. But if you tripped due to your own stupidity, if you did something stupid due to your own stupidity, if you made a mistake because you did something stupid and they are laughing at that, then honestly, that's not so bad because at the very least, sure you may have messed up, but at least you made someone happy. Okay, and as far as I'm concerned, that is good.
Stand-up stint, I lean into my eccentricities in my own videos, as I'm sure you're well aware. Some of the experiences I've had certainly make for more interesting stories than, I don't know, falling out of a tree or something, eh? Being autistic is being different, and there is huge potential in that. And if you can't recognize those things about you that make you special, and I mean special, not special, then I think you might be robbing the world of a great artist, or a great thinker, or just a great contributor in general. I've lived with this condition. If you're on the autism spectrum, I don't need to have met you to say that I think you have potential to do great things. And I know that sounds cheesy, but I mean it. You might not think you have anything to contribute, but you do. I'd always thought that I had something to offer to this world, but for just a while, when I sat outside that sorting office on that field in the dead of night, I started to believe that whatever it was, I'd never get to show it. And look at me now. I'm a YouTube gamer, oh my god. We have a place in this world, but it's not the same as most others. It's going to be harder to find. It's not going to pop out in front of you. You're going to have to go looking for it. Your route to being able to exist in this world in peace will be unconventional. In fact, I think it kind of has to be. And again, that's not fair. But if the relative peace I've found myself in lately, despite everything I've dealt with, is any indication, coming out on the other side might just make it worth it. I don't just do YouTube because it's the only thing I can do. I also do it because it's something I've found that I'm genuinely passionate about and that I enjoy, because I like making people laugh and entertaining people, and because I think this is the best place to do it in the exact way that I want. It's
Yeah. I also enjoy making YouTube videos as well and all that. Although I recently decided to although I finally decided to. The reason why I finally decided to make a YouTube channel and upload videos is the idea of if I build an audience on one social media platform, then I can move that audience somewhere else, like my web comic that I have been working on throughout this entire video and all that. So yeah, check that out as well. Mm-hmm.
cool that I have that. I'm not going to do it all my life. God knows there's so much more I want to do beyond this. But for now, I'm settled. And it's so
Yeah, same here. I mean, there's a lot of things that I would like to do with my life and all that. Honestly, I think I wouldn't mind having making comics for the majority of my life and all that. I mean, well, yeah, I think I would like to I make a career out of making web comics and all that, because it would be a career of telling stories, and I like the idea of telling stories and all that, and there's so many stories in my head that I just want to tell and all that. And I just have to tell them and all that. And also I have spent so much time just thinking of all the stories that I want to tell. Thinking about the entire of just how plots would work, certain scenes, coming up with certain scenes, and coming up with characters and all that. I just can't help it, and it's just something that's happens, and I just can't help but just come up with stories and all that. And whenever I come up with a story, there's just a need for me to just to just want to tell that story and all that. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's something a lot of artists can relate to right there.
cool that I get to do this. You have something like that too, even if you don't see it right now. And you don't have to see it today or tomorrow or even next year. Just keep that thought in mind and take it at your own pace. Take all the help you can get because the game is rigged against you. Fuck it, cheat the system if you have to. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Because it isn't the same place as everyone else, finding where you belong isn't going to be easy. But nothing worth doing ever is. Autism is not an excuse. You are still responsible for the things you say and do. It's not a free pass. You can still hurt people and you can still be in the wrong. It's also not entirely bad, nor is it good. It shouldn't consume your whole identity. It shouldn't be something that defines you. It should just be another part of you. It can help you, and it will hurt you sometimes too, but so does every part of you. World Autism Awareness Day is on April 2nd, and all I ask...
I agree with that closing statement there. That's a pretty true closing statement there.
When that day comes is that maybe you think about this video, maybe you show it to someone who you think it could help, but more importantly, you just think about the people who have it and just how much harder they have to try.
And just realized I didn't pause the video so I could read the comments, yeah. Right.
This
Right. Okay, one way I've heard autism described is like this It's like you're acting in a play and everyone has a script except you. And then everyone else gets upset at you for improvising. Eh, yeah, particularly relatable. Getting diagnosed with 16 is very late. Me in the process of getting diagnosed at 23. Oh man, and that's terrible. No, getting diagnosed at 23. You're right. This needed to be made. I'm not on the autism spectrum, but being informed by your experiences invaluable. I think myself and a lot of other people did know this. So thank you for this informative and credible video. This was a good watch. I briefly majored in psychology during my short college stint, and even there I was able to grasp just how new that field of science was. Nothing was concrete, like you'd see in physics or chemistry or anything like that. We only ever learned theories, saw changes being made in the most present time. This is probably the newest form of science out there, and it's also one of the most complex, having to do with the human mind. It's fascinating, but so frustrating, just how uncertain everything is. But that doesn't mean we can't stay kind. It's very important for people to grow a sense of tolerance for things that are different than the norm they've been born, raised into, and the only way that sort of tolerance can be obtained is videos like these, where we see real people account their experiences, struggles, and benefits for issues that no one really understands yet. Thank you for sharing. Okay, gonna like that. Alright, I don't have autism, but I myself repeatedly coming back to this video because the perspective you provide, I truly mean it when I say this video is inspirational for anyone. You are a seriously talented creator. Sorry for using the word talented, couldn't think of another word to use it. LOL. I've been diagnosed with autism for a while now, and I thought a lot of the stuff I went through was unique to me. Turns out you also went through a lot of stuff, uh, uh, a lot of the stuff I went through, which really makes me feel better. Thanks, man. I'm autistic, but I'm lucky to have gotten very self-aware rather early on, so I managed to hold back most of the things I did because of autism. I'm autistic, and this video nearly brought me to tears. I feel so understood. I think my biggest issue is something called executive dysfunction, and it's impacted my academic performance a lot. I understand the content I've been taught, but I cannot get myself to start or complete assignments on my own. So I've struggled with grades since middle school. I've never been offered any significant help. Everyone just expects me to get better and stop struggling. I just feel broken sometimes. What you said about seeming like a normal kid who's just stupid, incompetent, not exact wording, really hit hard. It's even worse if you're used to masking. That is exactly how people see me. Thanks for this video. It means a lot. Right, one more commentary to read. As I school with a younger sister that has autism and possible autism myself, I'm grateful for your video on this. My mother, who has an autism mask, sent my sister a very sweet note on her messenger kids about how she and I were the best thing that's ever happened to her. Thank you, Mom. If you ever see this, I love you so much. Alright. Yep. So that was a pretty good video. Remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Anyway, that's all for this, oh god, 2 hour video. So well, goodbye and have a good day.